you for joining us for Woke Moments, a conversation on issues and hot topics impacting young generations. My name is Janet Kelly, and I am the Executive Director of Sanctuary of Hope, as well as your host. So now let's jump into a moment of awakening.
Woke Moments!
So, for today's Woke Moments podcast, we are going to focus in on a young adult perspective on utilizing resources, engaging during this COVID-19 period, and what it looks like, again, on the ground perspective, and ways in which. So, today we are going to focus our Woke Moments podcast on a young adult, boots on the ground personal perspective of what it's like to engage in services, as well as what young adults are experiencing during this COVID pandemic period. And so today we have with us a guest, and our guest is Japheth Craig, who is a young adult, and I am going to allow Japheth to share a little bit about himself before we get deep into this podcast and have a deep discussion about COVID and young adults.
My name is Japheth Craig. I was a former foster youth from between the ages of 5 and 18. And pretty much to that aged out. So I had to learn how to, how to live with others and learn how to live amongst others and just, figure out what always my next step was going to be. So, and I ended up getting housing, and from then I began to live life. I began to live my life how I wanted to.
Japheth, how old are you, if you don't mind sharing with the audience?
I am 23 years old.
So you're a 23-year-old young gentleman, and we've known you for quite some time, number of years now, and have been able to see you kind of mature into the young gentleman that you are today. So, COVID-19 has been an interesting pandemic in the sense that it has disrupted many people's lives, particularly young people, right? And so I don't think the audience is fully aware of what this pandemic, or how this pandemic has impacted young people, especially young adults. What are some of the thought perceptions that are out there? What are some of the things that young people have been either searching to accomplish or achieve during this COVID period, or even some of the challenges that young people have experienced? So, can you share a little bit about that from your perspective?
Yeah, first of all, what's the name of this podcast?
Woke Moments.
Yeah, so you want to stay woke, and that's being aware. No matter what you're doing or where you at, you always have to be aware of what you're around and who you're around, and what kind of information you're inputting into your brain, into your body, and whatnot. So yeah, all these theories and all these different kind of things that's going on out here due to the coronavirus. It makes everybody feel like they're trapped, like we can't do anything, like how do we cure ourselves? What if what is going to happen to us? And how the main thing is how we'll be able to live, how we'll be able to make money, how we'll be able to provide for our families and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But like I said, you have to be aware, and the best thing I suggest is for people to just stay healthy, stay inside, but while you're staying inside, do some research on some of this stuff. Figure out, what can you do to help yourself, or just anything that you really feel as an educational purpose that you feel can benefit you, and that can give you some kind of better insight on, what's really going on. And, these are things that the news are not going to tell you, because the news, pretty much a lot of them are the same, and this is just like, all of this is coming off from the rip. This is just stuff that I'm experiencing as I'm going through it right now too as well. And yeah, but number one thing is solutions. We're always hearing about problems. So we have to figure out solutions. And the way how we figure that out is, we have to investigate, we have to research, we have to educate ourselves. So, there's so much stuff out there that we can, obtain, and we don't even know it because, we don't know about it. So in order for us to not feel threatened or to be living in fear, because that's how everyone is feeling right now. They're fearing for their life of catching this, or even a loved one. So if they feel like if they catch this or someone else, they feel like they can that they can die. That's the possibility, but some people have recovered, and that's another thing that the people, not the news and just other news corporations are not talking about is the actual numbers and the deaths and things that's being recorded. So it's all just fear-based, and the best thing, like I said, for you to do, yes, stay inside, go out for essential needs only, and what those are: groceries, bills, what else, banker, etc., whatever it is. You just have to figure out what your next step is going to be on from here. Right now is a good time to.
Let's talk about a misconception that the public may have about young people being careless, because it's been stated that young people are the least vulnerable to the virus. However, they potentially or can be carriers of COVID-19. However, the practices that a lot of young people have engaged in doesn't appear to be online with what most people think, because you're very mature, so you understand what's happening. So when the public sees someone throws a party and 100 people show up, or I believe last week someone threw a party on the roof of South LA, and then LAPD had to come out and shut it down. Yeah. Do you feel as if kind of like your peers are being careless, or do you just think it's just some media hype that it's kind of like maybe one or two instances of folks not really understanding or think that there's probably just a media hype because the incidents are so few, but media or some other perspective is hyping it up?
Yeah, I feel like it's a little bit of the both. Actually, somebody that was at that party was a friend of mine, and yeah, it got really ugly fast. A lot of people got cited. Yeah, for just, I guess, not the social distancing. So yeah, when I that was my first incident ever hearing about somebody getting cited for, I guess you could call it quote unquote curfew. And yeah, so it just kind of woke me up to not being aware and like not being in big crowds and spaces and whatnot. But yeah, I feel like they really hype it up at the same time, because I mean, I guess that's a way to like, I guess, separate us, to not keep us in contact within each other. I mean, it's a good thing, because we don't know who has it, and we would never really know until we have it. But also it's just a way to like dehumanize us, like just make us feel like we're in jail. Then that's how it kind of is, because you only could go out for this, or you could only go out for that, and it just turns into like a media hype, like you said, because people make it more than what it is and make it seem like it's more than what it is.
So just to use the party as example, right? So are young people attending the parties because of a need of socialization? Or are young people attending parties because they're just trying to kind of disregard this whole COVID-19 instruction to self-isolate and not have contact? Because it's one thing to say, I'm in need of human contact, right? Yes. And this human contact helps me with my kind of emotional and mental well-being, as
Yes.
opposed to, I'm just going to go to a party and just,
Yes.
disregard what's out there.
Yes, that's for that question too. Is kind of little bit of the both as well, because yeah, there's some really ignorant people out there, that just want to, I guess, disobey the law and just, they just want to go hang out, and then also too, it's just been going on for so long, or people haven't seen each other in so long, so they want to hang out and check up on friends and family and see just how they're doing, and socialize and hang out and have a barbecue or whatnot, and
Right.
have a drink or whatever the case may be. But there's we have to know a limit. We can't do it like before. We can't just be all outside for hours and hours and hours a night with loud music. And I mean, nothing wrong with us hanging out, but we just have to be a little bit more aware about it, about what we're doing and who our neighbors are, and the type of people that we are inviting into our homes as well. Because even though like I said, you don't know you have the COVID until you have it. So
Right.
it's, in a way, it's to protect us, but also it's in a way it's working against us as well. But we just have to know who to keep in our circles and who not to.
So how important are social connections to you?
I would say it's a very medium thing for me. It's important, but to an extent. But I feel like, as far as like business wise, yes, it's very important. But as far as like my social life and that kind of thing, it's not as important. It's more moderate. It's just like a hey, how you doing? Kind of checkup thing, and it's not more like a everyday thing, like where it's like it's really moderate.
It's very moderate. And how would you say it's like for some of your peers? Do you think it's more of a balance? Some need more, some need less, some need.
I learned not to judge, but some do need a little bit more balance. They're kind of figuring it out, or they have already figured it out. So we learn from our experiences, and that's the only way that we can know and that we can relate to these kind of like the people that we socialize with. But yeah, that's how we learn like who we group it, because I learned as I matured and as I got older. Yeah, just certain ways about me and certain things, just was not the same as my peers, because it was if I didn't feel like doing this, I didn't feel like doing it. If I didn't want to hang around no more, I wanted to go home, I would literally leave. I didn't want to stay around because so and so said so, or they have this or they have that over me, and it's just I did things because I wanted to, not because trying to be cool or trying to fit in with the crowd. So you pick and choose as your friends too as well, and what type of input what type of impact they're having on your life as well, if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Because if it's bad, you guys are probably going to end up getting into some bad stuff. If it's good, where is that going to lead you? So you just have to figure out what side of the shoulder you on. You have to figure out the balance. And yeah, you'll get there. Right now, we're all in survival mode, though. We have to keep going till we get it.
It's interesting that you mentioned that we're all in survival mode, which we are. And so, when adults, meaning mature adults past the age of 30, are in survival mode, their surviving is
Wow,
quite different.
30 survival mode? Wow, 30, wow.
Their surviving is quite different than someone who's surviving at your age, at the age 23.
Yes,
So can you share with the audience, like, what are some of the struggles of surviving? Like, is it, meeting basic needs, or is it tapping into some of our system resources, or is it just, what are some of the struggles that you would say right now that young people are trying to navigate in order to survive?
The only struggle that I would say is yourself. If you don't apply yourself, you're gonna struggle, and it's gonna take longer and longer and longer and longer and longer, and however longer it takes you for not applying yourself to the situation. How bad do you want to get out of your situation? That's what you should really ask yourself. And then progress on with the situation and have a plan of how you're going to be able to do it. And not just have one plan, have 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to like 20, 100 plans. If this doesn't work, okay, I could do this. If that doesn't work, okay, I got this plan, this plan, this plan, this plan, this plan. And, I could figure out as I keep going if certain plans don't work out for me. So, yeah, it's just applying yourself as much to it as you want. And
So where do you find your motivation for developing your plans for yourself? I mean, what's your motivation?
man, just not going back into the situation that I was in before. That's one of the kind of like the ways that I look at it is, man, I just don't want to be in that kind of situation. Like I call it survival mode. And I feel like I'm at a stage I'm at a stage above that right now because it's like where I can kind of relax, not so much relax, but I can kind of breathe a little bit basically and just figure out what how I'm gonna set myself up to be good in the long run as far as like financial wise and living wise and whatnot, and if I want to have a wife or children or whatever the case may be. But yeah, it's just about taking steps and having plans, and with every plan you'll start to be able to see what you're able to do and what you cannot do, because just because you have a plan that doesn't mean that you can do it. You have to really apply yourself, like I said. So it's about being ambitious to it, sticking to it, because everything takes a while. Things doesn't come fast, especially if you work for it.
So what would you, and this is more of kind of an advice thing, because you're really going to be speaking to young people who right now who are struggling with surviving. So what type of advice would you give to a young person who's struggling with food insecurity, meaning that they're trying to find food, they don't have access to food? I mean, what are some things that you would suggest that they do?
I have a lot of resources that I could refer them to, but there's the Dream Center, LA Dream Center. If anybody gets a chance, they should check that out. They're always giving out food every day. Find food banks, find churches. Do some research. These things are not just going to come to you. Or find different resources through programs that can help you with food, or if they can't help you with the food, they can find these other resources for you to find food. You just have to really find the resources, because every week they're giving out food. Every day actually they're giving out food. At the Dream Center you could go there between the hours of 8 and 6 every day, and they're giving out food, especially due to this pandemic going on right now. But even before that, they were doing it every week as well. And then a lot of church do that here in LA as well. So, yeah.
And I think one of the things is sometimes it's a humbling experience, and it's pride that some young people just don't want to do the ask.
Yeah.
And I always say, if you're hungry, just say you're hungry, and if you need a food resource, say that you need a food resource, because there are resources out there for you to gain access to, and one in particular is the Calfresh Program. And so if a young person is struggling with trying to get food, that's one of the...
Yeah, it's hard because what if someone never knew how to do these kind of things? What if what if like they were just so mistreated or whatever? Who knows what they've been through, and they just don't know how to deal with these kind of things, and they're trying to adjust to life, and they don't know how to talk to people, or how to even communicate with other people, or even their peers or whatnot. So yeah, it's a process, finding that confidence within themselves to even do it. Because
so how could people like me, or people who are a part of our audience, kind of help young adults build the confidence to make that ask? Is it so much the kind of building a rapport in a relationship? Is it more of a direct kind of, if I think you're struggling with this, to make an ask to you personally? what do you think are some good approaches to?
I think it's a more, I think it should be more personal, try to develop a rapport with the person to figure out what, what they're really going through and figure out what their need really is and, make sure that you're giving them the right, the right services that they're asking for, whatever the right attention that they're seeking at that time. Maybe they just want to talk or, they need some resources on living or, food or whatnot, or clothes. So, just try to figure out what, by talking, and just really figure out what is the immediate need that they need at that time of being.
So last night I read this report by the Los Angeles Economic Roundtable, and basically the report said that young adults are going to struggle the most, during this COVID period with long and persistent unemployment. And the report was very dire as it related to certain groups, but it really highlighted the young adults, meaning those even who are going to be graduating from college are going to struggle with unemployment over a period of time. And so what kind of suggestions would you want to offer our audience or even offer young adults about, how to manage in a period where employment may seem uncertain, but also knowing that at some point in time, employment is going to be kind of back on track. The industry, the economy is going to be back on track.
Everyone should be an entrepreneur. Figure out what your craft is, what you're really good at, what your skill is. You may never know. You could be a blogger, nail technician, hair designer, clothes designer, web developer, whatever. You just have to figure out your craft and your skill and try to manifest that into a business and make it something, because if we continue to work and expect to live paycheck to paycheck, so
That's very interesting because back in February we did our Black Narrative series, and one of the young people who shared at the Black Narrative series basically said that for a lot of programs, we need to refocus on what young people are really looking to do, which is to be entrepreneurs, and how we can best support or hone their skills so that they're able to start their own businesses so that they don't have to be wholly reliant on an economy that requires them to kind of just constantly be workers. So, but we have to get there, right? I mean, we have to get there over time. So for young people who are not on an entrepreneurial path and they are struggling to find employment, or they're struggling with unemployment at this time, what type of advice would you give them if they're not on an entrepreneurial path but are, in this COVID period needing to try to get some income in?
The best thing I would suggest is, we don't want to do that. There's a lot of warehouse jobs hiring. There's also security jobs, Walmart's, a lot of other few food companies that are hiring as well. Those type of places need people immediately, and it's I would say it's better than you doing that, because just because it's the COVID-19 going on, that doesn't mean if you break the law you can't go to jail. So that's a big theory that's going on as well too. So, and actually will take longer due to the situation. So just get a job and make your money and accumulate a goal. So
What would you say is swirling around in young people's heads right now about COVID-19?
a lot of people, like I said, a lot of people think that going to jail is unlikely right now because of the COVID. But that's not really the case. Like I said, you actually would still get incarcerated, and it actually would take longer for the incarceration process. Not really wanting to be around certain people because of like it could be even the slightest thing. It's like a cough or a sneeze. You know, someone is quick to judge you and think that you have corona or something.
You mentioning the jail aspect of it. So should we, as an audience or even organizations that provide services like Sanctuary of Hope, focus on putting a lot of our efforts around prevention services so that young people don't have the thought of committing a crime?
Yes, definitely. But that's hard within itself. I mean, it's not hard. It's just the people. I feel like the audience that you're trying to get. It's like, you have to pick the one. Well, the ones that want to stay, they'll stay. They'll lean in towards it. But there's always going to be those few that and those are the few that that's hard to reach. Because they're so traumatized. There's so much trauma there that you probably can't even figure it out. And some people just don't want to open up. So learning how to be open is something that like learning how to communicate and be open is something that we should really teach, and like we should really know a lot about being as young people, because we are always being closed-minded about different ideas and different kind of stuff, because it's just not something that we're used to, so we're so closed-minded to it. So being more open and being more communicating, communicable about it, it'll help a lot, because like it's like getting disrespected. Our reaction to that is like, man, so it's like we're ready to fight so fast.
I think that young people are being influenced a lot by what's posted on social media about COVID-19, and do they have the capacity to kind of filter through what's hogwash and what's real?
Definitely. They get a lot of, I guess, the information from social media. A lot of us do. So, some of it is kind of brainwashing us, and we're not no experts, so we can't tell if it's real or not. So, it's making us think all kind of crazy, things, and all kind of things that's probably not even true. So we have to figure out what's true and what's not. And like I said, we're not experts, so that's not up to us.
Okay. So there was another article too, published by a public health professional, and it was around young people, COVID, and substance abuse, meaning majority of young people are either using or marijuana more than ever, and then two, young people who are engaging in the e-cigarettes, vaping, and all of that. And it's been a challenge because, one, it's how do we encourage young people not to use that or engage in those substances as much, especially during this COVID period, and what kind of interventions or services would be useful to try to help young people not kind of engage.
Just bringing awareness to it would probably help a lot. But then again, too, there's a lot of people out there, and a lot of people will not. A lot of people have different perspectives and views on it. So some people probably would take heed, but then some others would probably just resume back to what they're doing, because that's probably all they know. They don't know how to quit or whatever the case may be. But and like I said, this is all they know.
And I think on our end too, it's we need to do a lot more kind of awareness campaigns about kind of the impacts of substance abuse, because some people use they use marijuana, or they're smoking the e-cigarettes, and that's their form of coping and self-medicating, right, to deal with their traumas. And we have to be able to kind of share that there are other kind of opportunities out there to help address, deal with the trauma, whether it's coming in for counseling or therapy or.
Good point. So when I went to jail, and yeah, I wasn't able to smoke. The thing that got my mind off of it, and it might sound, I guess, corny, as some people would say, but yeah, reading and working out.
Oh, wow.
That's all I could do was just read and work out. Read the Bible, work out, read, work out, read, work out, and just eat, reg time, and that was it. So it when I got out, it made me. I didn't have the urge to smoke right away, but eventually I did fell back into it because I fell off with the workout. I was free now, so I was able to do a lot more other stuff. Just going out and I lost the weight and so on and so forth. So yeah, I just figured that kept my mind off of that type of stuff, and then I was not available to it. So that made it a lot easier for me to quit as well too. So yeah,
So what you're saying is that, young people need to find activities that'll keep them preoccupied.
yes, working out, reading, drawing, just having an outing with friends. It could be a social outing, and just be, hang with somebody that you can relate with. Just do something to keep your mind, off of it, because that's how it starts with the I guess with you quitting, and the only way you want to quit is if you want to quit, because it's like if you have a job, you have to quit, or if you have to go to court, or you have a probation test or whatever, you have to stop smoking for a certain amount of days or whatever the case may be. But yeah, it's just up to you. But there's a lot of activities that can keep your mind off of it. But I think working out for me was, and this is scientifically proven too, I think working out for me was the best because it was so relatable to when I used to smoke. Because when you work out, it releases those same endorphins into your brain as if you was smoking. And yeah, it makes you feel like, I guess, high in a way. If you work out enough to the point where your blood is pumping and you're sweating, and yeah, it gives you that sort of kind of high like that, and that's what keeps you going to keep on working out.
Oh, wow.
So that's how I found to chase my high in working out.
So we're going to focus this part of the podcast on emotions and COVID. So I just know for me and myself that I've gone through a range of emotions of COVID. So I've gone from being in a heightened state of what's happening to sometimes I'm feeling not so much sad or depressed, but I'm feeling like really melancholy. Like I feel good, but then I don't feel good because either I've watched or read something in the news, like daily as I'm doing check-ins with, what's happening, are cases going up or cases going down? How can we help, for Sanctuary of Hope, how can we help young people who are contacting us virtually for various different things? Some who want to come in because they just need to talk to someone, and then some who are, we've had young people who are in or were in college back east, and then they had to abruptly leave their dorm quarters, and to help them kind of find a quick housing situation that they could come in to be stable. So it's kind of like the worry, because it's, you worry about other people who are kind of within your circle, and then it's kind of like the ups and downs of emotions that happen. So have you experienced yourself like a range of emotions around COVID? And do they come at certain times of the day, or does it come when like something happens?
Not for myself, but definitely for others. Yeah, I feel like before the COVID, we should have been, washing our hands and this kind of, and just being a clean, just being a clean person. And yeah, during the time of everything was started, yeah, it's just myself. So I don't really have too much to, I guess you could say, worry about. But I do have family members and stuff that I just try to educate them on what they should do, and how they should stock up and what they should stock up on, and in case anything does happen, what they should fly out the house with. So they should just always have some kind of emergency, something ready to go. You can't take everything in this house.
So your perspective has been really around preparing, right?
Preparing,
So
yes.
your whole
Solution.
kind of, you've been like, I'm just going to be prepared. I'm just going to kind of focus on a solution, and you're just going to kind of ride and deal with COVID as it comes.
I mean, yes, ride and deal with it as it comes, because if it gets to the point where where it gets so bad to where I guess money has no value no more, or where it becomes like a imperialist state, or like a totalitarianism. Like if it becomes something like that, I'm gonna have to go back home. Go back to where I'm originally from. So yeah, I don't want to. I don't want it to. I don't want to live in fear. So that's why I didn't let it really affect me and make me feel like, oh, I'm gonna catch it, or I mean, yes, it's possible. It's possible for anyone to get it, but the best thing, like I said, for people to do is educate themselves on it. Be aware and take vitamins and minerals too, because a lot of people don't know. I mean, some people probably do know, but.
So I mean, what's really great about this, Japheth, and that's why we appreciate you coming in, and I think staff enjoys talking to you
Yeah.
all the time, is that
Yeah.
you're always so positive, and you have a very
You guys
positive.
see the growth. You guys seen the growth.
Yeah, we've seen you. Yeah, we've seen you grow, and
Yeah.
it's that positive outlook, and it's how do we help? For us, it's how do we help young people kind of grow into that kind of looking at this as, okay, this is just a minor setback. We understand the seriousness of this, but eventually it's going to come to an end, right?
Yes.
So how do we kind of get young people to think about that? Is it, in basic constant communication? Is it kind of sending them thought notes? Is it, I mean, how can we get there? Or even among your peers, how do your peers help other peers kind of get to that positive level of thinking?
I think it kind of with my peers or certain peers, I think it kind of just flowed off of me, because it's like they see that I'm, doing good, or I'm talking good stuff, and whenever they ask me about something negative, I always like say something positive towards a negative answer, and yeah, they would notice that, I think it was, like I said, it was rubbing off, and I just noticed that, like I noticed that they couldn't talk to me about certain things no more. And yeah, I used to just hear little comments that they made, and they started having a different perception of me, but I didn't take it into offense. I was just aware of it, and I just let them, know that, I'm not that, well, not saying it, but I just showed them that I'm not that person anymore. So yeah, that was a big change in my with my peers, and I kind of noticed it rubbed off on a couple of my peers that I know, but it's just not something that a lot of people, I guess, like their truth, like I guess the truth coming out, or like they're trying to or they're trying to pretend to be someone else because of this friend got this, or this friend has that, and people paint a certain image of this person. They feel like they have to live up to that, and they don't know how to let that guard down and just be themselves.
Be themselves.
Yeah, and just if you are if you are who you are, that's who you are. Don't pretend to act like you have it all when you really don't have it all.
And it's okay to be vulnerable.
It's okay to be vulnerable, yes, but a lot of people look at that V word, vulnerable, as something totally different. As, oh, I'm in the middle of the open, anybody could come and run me over, and
So what's a term that we should use? Not vulnerable.
No, I have no other word. That's the best way. That's the best way to describe it, because being vulnerable. And being vulnerable doesn't mean exactly what I just explained. Being vulnerable means, being open to the situation and letting someone, even though if they're wrong, have the upper hand in the situation, and you learn how to handle it as an adult, and just easily, ease yourself out of the situation without no conflict. Because if you're not vulnerable, you're gonna how do I say this? if you're not vulnerable, you're always gonna be ignorant to what really is there, and what you can really do about it, and how you can handle things and how it would make you feel, how the difference that it would make you feel. But yeah, being vulnerable makes you grow as well. Makes you show that you can be the bigger person. And that has to start within yourself. If that's something that you want to do.
That's fantastic. So, Japheth, do you practice a faith?
Faith, as in faith, what kind of faith?
Like as faith, spiritual? I mean, is
faith.
there, I mean, so when times get tough or hard, or even when times are good, is there kind of like a faith or spiritual aspect to yourself that you tap into?
My breath. My breath. I take a lot of deep breaths. And, I just, I guess you could say kind of sort of meditate. I just kind of ponder on where I'm at right now and where I'm going to be at, and, where I'm at right now. If there's any problems, how can I fix them? And, just really ponder on it and sit down on it and really try to figure out what I can do and what I can't do. And, yeah, just, take a lot of deep breaths, and it makes me come back down to earth and, come back to myself, and I just be whole within myself. So, yeah, just taking a lot of deep breaths and burn a lot of sage.
Burn a sage. Well, that's fantastic. So we're going to move on to COVID and the census. So with the census, it's a very important count of people within the United States, and particularly in communities like South LA or in areas like Inglewood and Hawthorne. Traditionally in the past or historically, they've been undercounted. But these are areas where more than 50%, in some cases more than 35 to 40% of the population are young people under the ages of 30 years old. And so last week when you were here and we were all talking, we were talking about the census, and you said, "Oh, I got my paper," and you were going to get counted. Did you count yourself?
I'm still actually working on the process. It's kind of hard.
Okay.
I'm having a little bit trouble understanding. There's a lot of information, but yeah, I do plan to turn it in and get counted, because I feel like my number does matter, in the community that I stay in, and everyone else's number does matter as well too, because that's going to determine, what type of businesses we can have in our community, and what type of capacity these businesses could hold. So there's like a lot of information that that they need to figure out what resources they can make available to us in the areas that we live in, because if they're not counted, then we won't
get the resource.
We won't get the resources in the large numbers that we expect, or the resources that we feel that we should expect. So that's a very important thing to get in, just like voting.
And even for us, for young people who are kind of housed in their own apartments, that are not in kind of like any form of group quarters like college or in shelter, but really in places on their own, or they're living in households, we want to make sure that they're asking the households that they're living in to make sure that they're getting counted with that household, and even those who are living independently, that they complete the census form, which can either be done by paper, it could be done online, it could actually be done by telephone, but it's very simple. Basically, your name, number, the number of people in your households, if you're renting, if you're not renting, and they pretty much don't want to know anything else, and it's all stuck within the census department, and that information isn't shared with anyone outside of the census. So, I mean, what are some of the ways that we can help young people to become more informed about the census, so that we have a higher likelihood of them completing the census information?
Um, I feel like the best way is like, people like me, people like my age group and, younger, or, a little bit older, because it's more relatable, we can relate to them. And, if I have an Instagram and I post, if I post that on my Instagram and I'm showing how to do it, I'm pretty sure, some of my friends would probably follow along just because of them knowing me and just seeing the steps of how, easy it is. So, yeah, and, just trying to get that message out there. So, yeah, somebody who's, relatable in that kind of way can really make something like that
So we
happen.
need more peers within your group actually doing a lot of the awareness and outreach to get.
Together, yes, together. And, just having, be doing it together, but also just having the same goal, just wanting to, you know, make it better for someone else, and, not make it harder, because, this information is not that hard to do.
And while young people are at home or safer at home, now is the best time than ever to actually
Yes.
complete
Definitely.
the census form. Like I said, either online or by telephone. So, Japheth, normally at the end of our Woke Moments podcast, we ask our guests to share with our audience a woke moment. And so, what is it that you would like to leave with our audience about COVID-19 and young adults like yourself?
Yeah, I have a lot of I have a lot, I guess, but I feel like one that's more for this audience, relatable for this audience is so there was this guy on the bus, and happened about last month. Yeah, there was this guy on the bus. He was looked about the same age as me, and when I asked him his age, he was actually younger than me. But he came onto the bus and he didn't have on no shoes, and yeah, it was raining that day. His pants was rolled up. He had on a sweater, and he had his hair tied up in some kind of like knot or bun. He had on a hood, and it's a black guy. And I asked him, I just see him with his shoes off. I asked him, I'm like, what size shoe do you wear? And he's just looking at me like I don't know if he didn't believe, if he couldn't believe it, or I don't know, I don't know what his position was, but I wasn't judging him about the state of mind he was in or whatever. But he told me he wear a size 11, and yeah, I wear a size bigger than that. So I told him that these aren't a size 11, but they're a 12. And I basically, before I got to my stop, I basically gave him the shoes that I had on my feet,
Oh, that's
and I
wonderful.
walked home. And it stopped raining by that time, but the floor was. I walked home in my socks, about like 2 blocks. I live 2 blocks from the bus stop, so I walked about 2 blocks from the bus stop home. And yeah, I saw the guy a couple weeks ago, and yeah, he still had on the shoes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, on the same bus. Yeah, on the same bus. Seen him, but I really liked it though. Shoes. Nah.
Well, the fantastic part about it was that you gave,
Yeah.
and that you gave to someone
One
who
more
really
thing.
needed.
One more thing. So instantly when I did this, I told my friend, I'm like, hey man, can you come pick me up? And he was like, why? I'm like, I'm at the bus stop. I just gave somebody my shoes, and he's like, you tripping, man? Why? And like, yeah, it kind of made me laugh, because it just shows me how people point of views are, how different it is. And yeah, but he was just telling me the whole time, even when I saw him after, when I got home, he was like, you tripping, you're tripping. And I was like, yeah, I just kind of soaked it in, because, that's me. I'm not gonna, sit here and take back the decision that I made. I did it for a reason.
And you met a need.
Yes, definitely. And yeah, I feel like it's gonna come back. probably 10 times more.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Japheth, for joining us for Woke Moments. And audience, thank you for joining us once again for an informative discussion around COVID and young adults.
Thank you for listening to Woke Moment. For more information about our organization, please visit soh.org. Subscribe to us for a Woke Moment wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter at @the_SOH_LA and on Facebook and Instagram at Sanctuary of Hope LA.
Wake up!